Right, you lot, let's talk Villa and fresh transfer news. And it's not a transfer into the club, it's a transfer out of the club. As you've seen by the title, Aston Villa and Everton have agreed a £10 million deal to take Tim Iroegbunam from Villa up to Merseyside. So we're going to have a look at his career retrospective, what he done for Villa, and what the sale would mean for us, who we need to bring in to replace him, his player profile. And there's actually a tailor-made replacement already at Everton that we've already been linked to. All of that good stuff and more coming up. So leave a like, subscribe. Let's talk about Tim. So one thing that's important to note is that Tim is 20 years of age. It's a £10 million deal. It's great for PSR. I'm not sure if he counts as pure profit or not. We did sign him, I think, for the under-18s from the West Brom Academy in 2020 or 2019, I want to say. So I think it might be a pure profit, which means it's times by 4, which means 40 million for PSR. But, you know, beyond that, we have to look at his stats this season, which we're going to get into in a very, very short while. But he barely really managed any game time. We actually started Callum Chambers over him on the last day of the season. But let's get into his stats this season and then talk about the sale a little bit more. So as you can see, 20 years of age, 183 centimetres tall, mainly playing a centre mid position, but also was a bit more of a deep lying midfielder. Market value of 4.2 million, so a £10 million deal is actually not bad in the grand scheme of things. Managed 9 games, only 1 start for Villa and 158 minutes last season off an average rating of 6.06. In terms of his career in general, he played, I think, 5 games for us between 2021 and 2022 after we signed him from West Brom. He had a relatively successful loan spell at QPR where he managed 32 games and he's played 15 upon his return. But we look at his stats this season and yes, pass accuracy is good, dribble success is acceptable, but you can't really read too much into these stats. I mean, aerial duels, well, brilliant, but it's only 2. Again, only managing 158 minutes this season. You're not going to set the world alight in terms of his per 90s. You know, attacking wise, not a fantastic output at all. About 30 successful passes per 90. Pass accuracy again is good. Dribbles is not too bad. He's very, very good on the ball. Wins fouls, and you know, defensively is where obviously he excels. A good amount of tackles, a great percentage, a great amount of aerial duels, especially winning 100% of them as well, and recoveries as well. But we go back up to the all-important stats for him. 9 matches this season, in a season where Douglas Luiz has been suspended, Kamara has been injured, we have no other out-and-out holding defensive midfielders. Other options were brought in instead of Tim. And that is really worth mentioning. Like I mentioned earlier, Callum Chambers started over him. We kind of shoehorned John McGinn into a more of a defensive midfield role when he's literally been playing almost a left mid, left winger, left attacking mid for us. Youri Tielemans started the season as a split striker. He had to come in and play that deeper role. It seemed like Emery would rather sort of put a bit of polyfiller in that role and kind of saw Tim Iroegbunam as more of a plaster that would just come off if we put him in there. And I have to admit, he didn't set the world alight in the cameos that he did make for us. He was sometimes a bit sloppy on the ball. And don't get me wrong, I think he has all of the attributes to be one of, you know, well, not maybe one of the best, but a fine Premier League defensive midfielder, a 6 and 8. He has all the physical attributes. He's only 20 years of age. He'll be 21 at the end of June this year. But obviously Villa are in a position where we need to sell. So what kind of gap does it leave in the squad? Well, apart from Kamara, we have no other defensive midfielders in the team. Now, I don't count Callum Chambers as a defensive midfielder. I know he played there for us a couple of times, but I think he needs to be sold as well. Douglas Luiz obviously going. Weston McKennie, allegedly his replacement, not a defensive midfielder by any stretch of the imagination. And that brings me on to who could replace Tim Iroegbunam in the team. And we have been linked with the likes of Adrien Rabiot, a fantastic performance for France in the Euros yesterday as I filmed this video. We've been linked with the likes of Guendouzi. It doesn't go away. Obviously, he was like Emery's golden boy in France for Arsenal, and it's always linked with him, and he can play a bit more of a defensive role. But there is already one at Everton, like I mentioned at the start of the video, and that is Amadou Onana. I'm actually going to make a whole video on Onana a little bit later on. I don't want to subtract from the fact that we have lost a villain in Tim Iroegbunam, but Onana, very, very good stats this season for Everton. Obviously playing for Belgium now, disappointing result for them to start the Euros, but it's going to be a £50 million deal. We're selling Tim for 10, pure profit, should take that up to 30, 40 million. So to balance the books, and I think you would take Onana over Tim, it could be an interesting option. I think we definitely need to replace Iroegbunam because it's a player profile that we are missing in the centre of the park. Yes, he was one for the future. I just don't think Emery saw him as a future centre mid for Aston Villa. It's a big role to play, especially in our 4-4-2 system, even in when we sort of transition in attack to a 4-2-3-1. You know, we're going to have a more attacking-minded centre mid in Weston McKennie now, allegedly, again, coming in. John McGinn didn't really perform fantastically as a defensive midfielder. Again, his main attributes are progressing the ball up the pitch. Yuri Tielemans is nowhere near a defensive midfielder. So it's an interesting sale. I think Tim Iroegbunam, a lot of people thought he was going to be a very, very good player for Aston Villa. Clearly, it hasn't worked out for him. Yes, he's young. 10 million, I would probably like to see a little bit more money coming in for him, maybe towards the 15 to 20 million pound mark. But nonetheless, thank you for all your service, Tim. I genuinely think he's going to go on to have a great future in world football. I think he will be a Premier League midfielder for a majority of his career. I hope he gets an England cap one day. And I actually think that Everton, for him, is a pretty good fit. Onana is not going to be at Everton next season, let's be honest. Whether it's us that he's playing for, whether it's Arsenal, I think Manchester United have been linked with him. A lot of the top clubs in Europe want Onana in. So I think they're planning for the future. Under Sean Dyche, I think defensively he's going to become 10 times more sound, because that's the type of manager Dyche is. He wants people to do the basics and fundamentals of defence well. And I think Tim will fit into that team very, very well. And I'm interested to see how it will work out for him at Everton next year. But I want to hear your comments down below. Who do you think we should get in to replace Tim Iroegbunam? Do you think we were right or wrong to sell him? Let me know. I'll reply to everything. I'll see you guys soon. Up the Villa. Be nice to everyone.